I've made a potential team for Roy and a potential team for Liko, and now it's time to give Dot her own team. Hey Pokemon champions, I'm Champion Blaze, and Pokemon Horizons has recently entered its new Terrestrial arc where our heroes will learn how to terrestrialize with their Pokemon in battle. Each of them has 2 Pokemon now, with Dot's capture of Tinkatink being the most recent addition. And if Dot had a full team, what would that look like? Today we'll figure out just that. Like in my last 2 potential team videos for Liko and Roy, I'll be going off of Dot's personality and what we've seen of her up until this point to try and predict what Pokemon would be a good fit for her. And since Liko now owns a Hatena, I won't be sticking to just Paldea Pokemon this time around to create Dot's team. I'll be looking at every single Pokemon generation to create her team, which wasn't easy. But I think the Pokemon I've chosen here really fit her quite well, and I'd love to see her catch at least one of them. Be sure to comment which Pokemon you think Dot should catch, and with that said, let's get started. Before we begin the actual team building for Dot's team, I'd like to take a moment to highlight the suggestions you guys gave to me on Twitter. I did this with Liko as well, and you guys gave good predictions this time too. @Daryl171393 thinks that Dot should have an Eevee, which should evolve into a Flareon. That's definitely been the norm since Gen 6 for a girl to get an Eevee, but the other characters like Gary and May have also gotten Eevee as well, so it's definitely possible. Millie Rosewish thinks Dot should have a female Nidoran, Clefairy, Klefki, and Mimikyu. Nidoran makes total sense, and I'm not sure why I didn't even think of this before seeing this tweet, since Dot wears a Nidorina costume as Nidothing. Clefairy is pretty popular, so it could work. Klefki overlaps with Tinkatink's typing, so maybe not, and then Mimikyu is very interesting. @TrueCellBand thinks Dot should have a Caterpie that evolves into a Butterfree to symbolize Dot coming out of her shell, which is absolutely perfect, makes total sense, no complaints there, great choice. And then also have her end up with Trico and Tepig. Not sure why he chose these specific starters, but it would be cool if she had them. @Gavinator2 sees Dot having Klefki, Miraidon, Cherim, and Nidorina. Again, Nidorina makes total sense. Klefki overlaps with Tinkatink again. Miraidon, not sure how that's gonna work or even happen based on how the anime is going, but we'll see. And apparently they think Dot looks like a Cherim, and oh my gosh, I cannot unsee this now. This made me laugh. @Savior789 could see Dot catching a Badoo or Roselia and evolving it into a Roserade. Gotta say, I'd love Roserade to get some more love and spotlight in the anime, so I'm all for this. @Jevricasta thinks she should get a Toxel that becomes a low-key Toxtricity. Not a bad choice, and low-key form matches Dot's personality a lot since it's more mellow than the amped form. @Sniffy the Cookie wants Dot to have a Charcadet, and honestly, someone needs it. Charcadet could be a big brother to Tinkaton, and when it evolves into Armrouge, it could have a rivalry with Amitheo's Cerulege, which is something we all want to see. @Gem_Stones picked Toxel, Dipplin, and Rockruff or Lycanroc for Dot to capture. Rockruff makes a lot of sense and could happen since she could just get gifted Murdoch's Rockruff. Dipplin is interesting and not bad, and Toxel would be good for her too. And lastly, @Sinojohn sees Dot having Toxel as well. Interesting how many people think Toxel is a perfect match for Dot. I really appreciate all the feedback I was given for this video, and these definitely influenced my team building for this video since I didn't consider some of these Pokemon. With that said, let's see which Pokemon made it on to the final team roster. First up, we have Quaxly. I think we all saw this coming. In my previous videos for Liko and Roy, I stated how I believe each of them should receive the final evolved form of their starter Pokemon, being Meowscarada and Skeledirge respectively. So the same would go for Dot, with her evolving her Quaxly into Quaxly. We've never had all 3 protagonists each have a fully evolved starter Pokemon, the closest we've gotten being Ash having Sceptile and May having Blaziken, with Brock having Marshtomp in the advanced series. But here in Pokemon Horizons, I think we have a good chance at all 3 protagonists having their fully evolved starter. Throughout the first season of Pokemon Horizons, we've seen each character in our trio bond with and get closer with their respective starter. From catching them, to raising them, battling with them, and growing with them, we've seen a lot so far, and there's more to come. Liko Sprigatito has already evolved into Floragato in their battle with Shiny Rayquaza, and with Fuecoco having the best moveset so far with Flamethrower, Disarming Voice, Stomping Tantrum, and Flame Charge, I'd say Fuecoco isn't too far behind. Quaxly has also recently shown a fiery battling spirit as well, and I think Quaxly evolving into its final form would be a perfect way, as with all 3 of our heroes, to showcase their growth and development over the series. Floragato is a perfect example of this, and Dot has already grown quite a bit with Quaxly. Now if Dot gets the Brock treatment from AG, then Liko and Roy will have Meowscarada and Skeledirge respectively, while Dot will only have a Quaxwell. But with the amazing dancing we got from Quaxly in the Oinkalone episode, I'd love to see Quaxly become the amazing, fully fledged dancer it can be by evolving into Quaquaval. There's been roughly equal importance put onto each of our main heroes, so I believe Quaxly will ideally end up evolving into Quaquaval by the end of the series. Next up is Tinkatink. Dot recently caught Tinkatink while shopping for supplies in a nearby town. While Tinkatink ended up smashing her prop microphone and making a hammer with it, and was so proud of it that she wanted to show Dot. So she traveled all the way back to the Bravasagi to show her. After dealing with an orcworm that was eating the iron from the ship, Tinkatink decided it wanted to stay with Dot. Dot defended Tinkatink from accusations from the Rising Volt Tacklers and battled with it to defeat the orcworm, so their bond is already off to a pretty good start. So it makes total sense for Tinkatink to completely evolve into Tinkatink. It would symbolize Dot going from a shy person who's mostly isolated and shut in to a person who's more outgoing and ready to try new things and tackle things head on. Tinkatink is very timid right now and kind of a crybaby, but that's natural for it. As it evolves into Tinkatuff and then Tinkatink, it would get stronger and gain more courage. The same way Dot has been slowly gaining more courage and confidence thanks to Liko and the rest of the Rising Volt Tacklers. Plus, Tinkatink would be the perfect Pokemon to combat shiny Rayquaza as a fairy steel type, and it can use its hammer to knock Rayquaza out of the sky like Colobsidian. Plus, since the Pokedex mentions how Tinkatink loves to shoot Corviknight out of the sky and render them useless as a taxi service in Paldea, I think it would be hilarious to see an interaction where Meteo's Corviknight is actually scared of Dot's Tinkatink. I know I gave this Pokemon to Liko last year when I made that video, but now that Dot has Tinkatink, it kinda seals the deal for Dot having Tinkatink now. All in all, I see this Pokemon becoming fully evolved just like Quaxly. Number 3 will be the fan favorite Armarouge. Ever since Armarouge and Ceruledge were revealed during the lead up to the release of Scarlet and Violet, they were both instantly fan favorites. We already have a Ceruledge trainer with a Meteo in Pokemon Horizon, so it only makes sense that someone gets Armarouge. You might recall that I also put Armarouge on Liko's potential team as well, and not only did some of you suggest it for Dot's team too, if Liko doesn't get it, then Dot should definitely get it. Someone's gonna have this Pokemon, damn it. Armarouge just makes so much sense because it would add a fire type to Dot's team for diversity, but also gives her the psychic typing, and while that makes it weak to Ceruledge since it's a ghost type, that would just push Dot and Armarouge to train harder. Charcadet is also a very cute and tough first stage Pokemon similar to Riolu. Ceruledge and Armarouge even give off vibes similar to Lucario. Charcadet could undergo a training arc similar to Ash's Riolu, where it gets a lot of training from Dot, and eventually during a tense situation, maybe another run-in with the Explorers, its evolution could be triggered to evolve it into Armarouge. And I know it needs the armor to evolve, so maybe it would be wearing the armor in that battle. Armarouge is perfect to have a rivalry with Ametheo Ceruledge without Pokemon Horizons, similar to Fridge Charizard. And with Armarouge's warrior personality, it's quite the opposite to Dot's personality, which could help inspire her to become more brave and outgoing, even more so than she's learning how to do now. So this would be a great addition to Dot's team. Let's follow up with Nidoqueen. This one, as obvious as it should have been, is something I didn't think of until you guys gave me suggestions on Twitter. Dot wears a Nidorina costume as Nidothing on her streams, so catching a real-life Nidorina and evolving into a powerful Nidoqueen would make total sense. Dot's always been one to be cooped up in her room with her head in her books or in her computer doing research or editing videos. She'd much rather be inside than outside, and so she hasn't experienced much of the outside world and what it has to offer. But as the series continues, she slowly learns to break out of her shell and try new things and, you know, touch some grass. So adding a Pokemon to her team that's this important to her identity is perfect. Liko and the rest of the Rising Volt Tacklers could be traveling somewhere, maybe Galar or Kanto, and they could stumble upon a wild Nidorina. Maybe it's injured and they have to take care of it, or maybe it's one that stands out from the crowd and is either super rambunctious or super shy. This would allow Dot to connect with this Nidorina or even Nidoran female and help it to open up or calm down. I've always been interested to find out why of all Pokemon Dot decided to get a Nidorina costume. It must be important to her or a Pokemon she just really loves, so I wonder if she's ever seen one in person. If not, then catching a real Nidoran female or Nidorina would be great because it can be a reward for her continuing to explore the world, which would allow her to train the Pokemon that is so heavily associated with her content and online persona. Nidoqueen would add a lot of power to her team and help her more easily stand up to the Explorers as the journey continues. Our penultimate team member here is Midday Lycanroc, and I don't know how I didn't think of this on my own. If there's any Pokemon in this video that has the best chance of being added to Dot's team, it's Lycanroc. As we all know, Ash received his Dusk Lycanroc as a Rockruff from Professor Kukui. Rockruff took a liking to Ash and wanted to battle alongside his Pokemon, and the rest is history. This would lead to Rockruff helping Ash win his second Grand Trial battle against Olivia, and then shortly after, it would evolve into the brand new Dusk Lycanroc. I can see the same scenario happening with Dot. Murdoch owns his own Rockruff on the Brave Asagi, and it's got a good spirit and playful personality. However, fairly recently, we also saw that Dot's mom owns a midnight form Lycanroc, interestingly enough. Dot battled her mom to show how far she'd come since leaving home, and expressed her feelings to her mom in the battle. As she continues her journey, I could see Rockruff coming to the aid of Dot to protect her from an oncoming attack, and then Murdoch decides to gift Rockruff to Dot. As a parallel to her mom, Dot's Rockruff would evolve into the midday form, and then I could see them having another battle later on toward the end of the series. And of course, Murdoch would cry seeing Rockruff evolve into Lycanroc. This Pokemon absolutely has to be on Dot's team. We've got one team member left, but before it's revealed, I need to reveal the 3 Pokemon that I think would be good for Dot to have as rotation Pokemon, and they are Cetitan, the Dunsparce, and Ampharos. Cetitan is another Pokemon I thought Liko could also have in rotation, and it works well here for Dot too. She could catch it as a Cetadel near Glaciato Mountain and raise it into a powerful Cetitan. Cetadel is a cute little baby that I could see Dot caring for. Maybe it was abandoned on Glaciato Mountain or separated from its group. The Cetadel would decide to stay with Dot after bonding with her throughout the episode, and throughout lots of love, it becomes a powerful Cetitan. This could help Dot develop the same motherly qualities we saw her own mother have when she was aboard the Brave Asagi. The Dunsparce is simply here because it's a new Gen 9 Pokemon that trolled all of us, and I could see Liko, Roy, and Dot learning how Dunsparce has this new evolution, and they, just like us, could be imagining what this evolution of Dunsparce could be. And then when Dot catches the Dunsparce, they can get trolled just like us. I don't know, I just think it would be a funny Pokemon for Dot to get on her team. Plus, Ash for some reason always had a fascination with Dunsparce, and since he never got one, let's just give it to Dot. Lastly is Ampharos, because the electric typing would provide great diversity and coverage to her team, and help immensely against Rayquaza. At some point, they'll probably have to travel to Johto so they can encounter the hero Entei later in the series. So if they travel to Johto, then it would be a perfect opportunity to capture Mareep. It's just a Pokemon I could see Dot having, and if we get Mega Evolution in Pokemon Horizons when Pokemon Legends ZA is released, then this would give Dot a Pokemon that can Mega Evolve. And since Ampharos gains the Dragon type upon Mega Evolving, it makes it even better to stand up to Rayquaza. Those are the rotation Pokemon covered, so let's reveal Dot's final team member. Dot's final team member is going to come from the Indigo Disc being Hydrapple. This may seem like a left field Pokemon, but hear me out. I've noticed that so far in Pokemon Horizons, there have been a decent amount of Gen 8 Pokemon getting attention, such as Liko catching Hatena, Murdoch owning Alchemy, Karkle, Sinistea, and Poltegeist being aboard the Brave Asagi, Amethio owning a Corviknight, Roly-Poly and Centiskorch being used in the gym battle they had against Kabu, not to mention the fact we actually got to visit Modestoke, and even 2 episodes focused on Galarian Moltres, so the Gen 8 Pokemon are deservedly getting some time to shine. With that in mind, I believe it only makes sense to give Dot a Gen 8 Pokemon of her own, being Applin. This would also make sense thematically since Murdoch has a food-based Galar Pokemon, and this would give Dot her own Galar-based food Pokemon. Plus the Grass Dragon typing is some nice type diversity for her and gives her a Fire Water Grass core with Quaxly, Charcadet, and Applin. Now since we're in the Gen 9 anime, giving her Applin allows her to gain access to the new Applin evolutions introduced in the Scarlet and Violet DLC, being Diplin and Hydrapple. The new Applin evolutions were completely unexpected in Scarlet and Violet, but it would be great to see Dot evolve an older Pokemon into a newer Pokemon. They could have an arc in Kitakami, and that's where Applin first evolves. Then if they visit Blueberry Academy, Diplin could evolve into Hydrapple there. Even if they don't visit those areas, it's still a great way to tie in those areas to the anime by at least giving Dot the Pokemon that were introduced there in their respective DLCs. Plus they're pretty cool Pokemon and beloved Pokemon from Gen 9. All in all, this would be a great Pokemon to finish off Dot's team. Dot's got plenty of growing to do, and I believe by the end of the series, her team should be Quaxly, Tinkatink, Armarouge, Nidoqueen, Midday Lycanroc, and Hydrapple, along with Cetitan, the Dunsparce, and Ampharos in rotation. This gives Dot a great mix of new and old Pokemon since this series does take place all over the Pokemon world, and we've been seeing a good mix of all generations of Pokemon so far in the series. And since Liko already has a Gen 8 Pokemon in Hatena, I think it's even more likely that Dot could get Hydrapple. But what team could you see Dot having in the anime? Let me know your potential team down below, and if you're interested in seeing the teams I made for Liko and Roy last year, be sure to click the videos on screen and subscribe for more videos like this. As always, thanks so much for watching, and special thanks to our channel members for their extra support. With that said, remember to train hard, and I'll catch you guys later.